Okay, good day everybody. Today we're going to go on a tour of the bridge. Hopefully it will be quite entertaining for you. Certainly not many people get to see the bridge of a ship, certainly not in action. So we'll go up, we'll try not to interfere with the Officer of the Watch, and hopefully you enjoy, as I said. Here we go. Okay everyone, welcome to the bridge. Here we have Simon, our Officer of the Watch. He currently has the common responsibility for the vessel, making sure we stay safe at sea. Right, on the bridge we have a few different areas. We have the centre console, we have the bridge wings, we have the safety area or safety centre, and then you have the chart area over here. We'll start with the main console, and then we will do a quick tour of the rest of the ship. Whilst we're here, let's have a look out. Couple of ships going past us there, ACL and another smaller cargo ship. Not a bad view from the office, if you do say so yourself. Right, okay. So, the centre console is the main conning area of the ship. Conning means to control the vessel and to ensure its safe passage. Start up on the support side of it, you have the main computer system which has multi-functions, and we can get information on it, such as all the information about the main engines on the port side, starboard side, propulsion control, power plant generation, ballast system for the chief mate, bilge systems, how much fuel and oil we've got on board, as well as alarm panels for the thrusters, the steering gears, starting and stopping ventilation areas for the ships, fire and flume systems, so on and so forth. The whole system itself allows a multitude of control, and it's just the day-to-day running of the ship and alarms. We have a CCTV section here that allows us to see vehicle decks, engine spaces, and exterior of the ship. We've got a couple of gyro compasses, two gyros on board this ship. At the moment we're on gyro 2. You can see it's reading 095.8, gyro 1 094.7, so about a degree difference, and the magnetic compass 100 degrees. You have to put in your speed and latitude because you've got a latitude, course and speed error with a gyro, but that's just to correct it for more accuracy. The difference between the gyro and the magnetic compass we'll go into in a bit later. Alarm panel and steering pumps for the two rudders. We've got 2 pumps for each rudder, which means that we have twice the speed of manoeuvring. Generally at sea we go with 1 pump on each side, and when we're coming into port for safety we'll put both pumps on. We also have emergency steering controls there. That's just one way we can emergency steer the ship. We have the ECDIS, which stands for Electronic Chart Display and Information System. This one's generally used by the masters and the officers of the watch during passage. It's set up on docking mode here, so you've got our rate of turn, thruster power, engine power, rudder indicators, depth beneath the keel, and our wind speed. That's just general running information for the ship. And over here we have the ECDIS side of it, the actual chart side of it. So you can see down here we have the ship following through the TSS as it goes towards the bar buoy in Liverpool, and then we'll go further on. I'll show you more inside of that when we move to the other ECDIS in a minute. Steering gear alarm pumps. We have our VHF radios here. Got three types of radio. You've got VHF, MF and HF for medium frequency, high frequency, very high frequency, and then you've got LF, low frequency. Ports all use VHF because it's the shortest frequency, it's not going to bounce off too far. The international distress frequency is channel 16. Most ports will operate on channel 12, 74, so on and so forth. And the range of that is about, it's line of sight from the mast, so you're looking about 20 to 25 miles. If the atmospherics are right, you can get a skip distance on it, which means you can double, triple, even quadruple the distance. But generally, you're looking about 20 to 25 miles. Moving on to the radar. Here you can see we're entering the TSS. I told you about the two ships earlier when we started the video. One of them was the Atlantic Sun. That was the larger of the two. If you use its AIS signal, which is automated identification system, you can find out information about it. So the Atlantic Sun is at this latitude and longitude, bearing from us, range from us 2.6 miles. It's doing 2.71 degrees over the ground, which is correct west. Course over the ground 271.5, so its heading is slightly different to its course over ground. That will be from wind and tide. Speed over the ground is 18.7 knots. Time to closest point of approach for us, it's past us, it's negative, and it was at 2.2 miles. It's heading to Hamburg. It's due to be there on the 27th of April at 2200 zone time. It's a cargo ship with no hazardous cargo, 295 metres long and 8.6 metres underneath it. That's its AIS signal. You can also get the same information for the target using radar, which doesn't give you destination, but it gives you possibly more accurate information for the ship, depending on how accurate their AIS transponder signal is. On the radar as well, this is the X-band radar, which is 3 centimetre, picks up SARTs and distress beacons like that. At the moment we're on a 6-mile range. I said we're here entering the TSS. If we go down, you'll see the difference between our actual course over ground vector and our heading. The vector has 2 arrows over the ground. The heading is a solid white arrow. And again, we're being set by the tide. It gives us our heading, our speed, our set, our position, current wind, and our track information. Onto the control section for the board. Everything here controls the radar. Range up and down, vectors, relative, true, time, video synth, electronic bearing line or variable range marker, whether you want to offset the radar or not, acquire targets, whether you go between radar, chart radar or conning. You can control just the radar, which just gives you the radar echoes. You've got the chart radar, and then you've got the conning display. Most of the time we leave it on chart radar. Over this side, track pilot, speed pilot, which are effectively autopilots. You can choose between heading mode, course mode and track mode. Heading mode keeps the ship on the same heading like a traditional autopilot, but lets you be affected by wind, tide, etc. Course means you set the course required and it will adjust the heading to make that course, not keep the heading. And track pilot means it will follow the red line. It's very good, but you have to make sure the full passage plan is set up correctly so that it doesn't alter course too quickly and it will never get out of the way of vessels. You have to do that yourself. Autopilot is controlled by this, so the whole ship, 1 click to port is 1 degree to port, 1 click to starboard, 1 degree to starboard, and then up here you have the turning radius, which you control here up and down, that moves it by 0.05 of a nautical mile. To steer the ship, generally, if we're not in autopilot, we use the ship's wheel. Yes, it looks very small, but these days you don't need the big wheels with the blocks and tackles for the tiller. Emergency steering, you can go here and you can send the steering between track pilot, the wheel, the desk, that's another autopilot, another emergency steering here, and the wings here. Moving on to the center console, we have the PA system, emergency stops for the engines, as I said, the selectors for the steering, navigational watch alarms. We have a gyro compass on the left and the transmitting magnetic compass on the right. The transmitting magnetic compass comes from up on the Monkey Island, and we get a digital representation down below. You con the ship from one side or the other. Simon is on the other side, I'm on this side at the moment. And if somebody is on the ship's wheel, we don't want to keep standing up here looking out to see and then flicking down to see what he's steering after command. So we also have rudder repeaters up top. Also up top we have the, you can't really see too well, but there you go, all the readouts as well, so you don't have to spend too long looking for them. That covers the pitch on the propellers, the RPM for the shafts, the rudder indicators, the rate of turn indicators, the clock and the gyro. Moving into the centre, we have the engine controls. At the moment we're on a fuel saving run, so we've only got one engine running, the port engine. This engine isn't connected, it's stopped, and the actual propeller is freewheeling. If you look up here, the port propeller is, the shaft of it is turning at 142 RPMs with a pitch at 67%. We're controllable pitch propellers, so the shaft will constantly run at 142 RPM, and we control the pitch of the blade. The higher the pitch, the more angle, the faster we go. The starboard one is pitch at 59 and shaft at 91. That's freewheeling, so as not to cause drag as we're not using it. The conning pilot also gives the actual time schedule, so our current ETA to a waypoint, distance to go, time to go, current track details, as well as all the information I mentioned before on the ECDIS. Engine alarms, and finally in the centre you have got the bow thrusters. Two bow thrusters, 1,000 kilowatts each. You can use singly or together, and they will shift the bow of the ship to port or to starboard to help us counteract the wind and tide when manoeuvring. We also have the electromagnetic logs, which gives speed through the water and distance through the water. A second radar, which currently has a control of the vessel. Simon is steering everything just with that at the moment, making sure we don't hit the rig, which, if I can zoom in, is just up there. Kind of important we don't hit it. He'll lose his job, I'd lose my job, and the ship would look worse for wear. We have another VHF around here, two GPS, one just showing the position and one showing the current course and track information for our route. We still have the good old-fashioned charts, as well as all the electronic trickery. This one you can see our current route is down here, past the TSS and in towards Liverpool. All the charts are kept in the chart table here. So all the charts for the passage are there, and we put out the most accurate and the best scale chart at the time. I told you there was a difference between the magnetic compass and the gyro compass. The gyro compass will always point to a fixed point in space. We use damping to make sure we know what that point in space is, and then we alter and we add a correction to that to make it point due north, or what they call true north. The magnetic compass will always point to magnetic north, and the magnetic north is different to the true north by two items called variation and deviation. Variation is the difference in the magnetic field of the Earth, and the deviation is the distortion on the magnetic compass by the ship itself. The variation we know. In 2017, at this point in the Irish Sea, the variation was 2 degrees 15 minutes west. It changes by 10 minutes east every year. So if we want to work out the variation now, we're 3 years later, so it's 30 degrees east and we're under a minute west. So that's how to work out the variation. The deviation is calculated per ship, and it's generally on the metal structures, how long you want to set course, the speed you're at the course, etc. And we have a compass observation book. The officer of the watch will take compass corrections. Each watch so that if we have to use the magnetic compass or the gyro compass, we know if there's an error to apply to it to bring it back to true. So the last one was today, 12 o'clock UTC. In that position, the object that we took was this size. It was the south side of the Skerries, and the error. Gyro was nil. The magnetic compass was 3 degrees west. At that point, the variation was 2 degrees west, which means we've got a deviation of 1 degree west. So if we want to take a bearing of an object using the gyro, at that time there was no error, but we would have to apply 3 degrees west error to the magnetic compass to get the true. We also have a deviation table from the compass adjuster, so that this is what the magnetic compass should be off at any position. Obviously, again, how long you're on courses, speed, movement changes the deviation, so hence we do the corrections every time. The ship's log gives you the course you're steering, both true, gyro and standard magnetic, the errors at the time, the wind force, the sea state, the sky state, that's clouds, etc., visibility, barometer, air temperature, and then you've got your remarks. This can be alter course positions, starting engines, stopping engines, etc. And at the end of the day, it's all signed by the master and the chief officer. This is the Christmas tree. All the navigation lights are controlled from here. At the moment, we have a forward mast headlight, an after mast headlight, a stern light, port side light, and a starboard side light. You can speak to your unit leaders and you can tell them what kind of vessel we are simply by the lights. We also have not under command, constrained by draft, restricted ability to manoeuvre, anchor lights, etc. that you can put on. So that you can describe, using the international regulations for prevention of collision at sea, the status of the vessel. Deck lighting and information. So passenger and crew cabin availability, crew lists, and obviously the schedules for the coming weeks are here. Just for information, digital thermometer, we're taking the crew's temperature every day just to make sure we don't have any issues with the current pandemic. Okay, on to the safety centre. We have the communications centre first. This is 2 SAT-C stations. SAT-C is an Inmarsat satellite communication system, and they're a British company who has satellites all around the world. They split the world into 4 regions. You've got the Atlantic Ocean region East, which is what we're connected to at the moment, the Atlantic Ocean West, Pacific Ocean region, and Indian Ocean region. These SAT-C systems can either get electronic group calling, which is here, which will send out messages to each ship in that area. For instance, this is a high seas bulletin for Met Area 1, so it's a weather forecast, and for the Sol area, for the next 24 hours, it's going to be variable, mainly northerly, 2 to 4. Moderate seas with showers, moderate or good visibility. That's for the Sol region. We also have personal messages which come through from technical support, so on and so forth, just to make sure everything's running correctly, and the distress areas. At the moment, no distresses, which is always good. We've got the MFHF radio, we've got the VHF radio, which is a repeater of the radio up front, and the GMDSS log. The GMDSS log is filled out with any communication to or from this vessel. As I said, you've got the multi-function computer system back here, and you have then got the fire control and safety plan. This has all the fire protection and the control items on the ship. So you've got every fire extinguisher on the ship is labelled and in position here. On all the decks, all the hoses, the alarms, the sprinklers, the fire doors, the watertight doors, the bulkheads, the life-saving equipment, it's all listed. So if there's a fire on board and we muster the emergency party, I will come over here and control the emergency. The chief officer will be on scene. He will take control of the emergency party, and I will list every manoeuvre they make on here, and I can advise of areas to shut, so on and so forth. So the whole ship is involved in fighting an emergency, whether it be a fire, grounding, damage, etc. There's a second fire and safety plan, duplicate of the first, up on the wall, just in case we manage to get other people here. They can have a look themselves and help. The emergency muster list, split into 3 sections: the general emergency, the abandoned ship, and the man overboard, covering all the emergencies that are likely to take place. It lists all the crew members' duties and their positions during the drill or the emergency. The fire alarm gives information on any of the fire alarms that go off, the type of detector it is and why it's gone off. The SOLAS panel has all the watertight accesses, so the stern ramp, port and starboard, pilot door, and the lower hold ramp cover. At the moment, all green. We're at sea, so they're safe, and the alarm position is set to C. So if anyone tries to open one of them or has a key in attempt and it's opened by the elements, it will alarm, so we know. We also have a watertight door indication panel that has all the watertight doors, whether it's pipe tunnel, duct, tank top, hatch cover, steering gear hatch cover, or the watertight doors into the accommodation. Again, all green as we are on the sea passage, and you can only pass through them, they shouldn't be left open. Speed log. The speed log sends a pulse from the transducer down to the seabed, bounces it back up, and takes the time between the two to work out how far the beneath the keel of the ship is the sea floor. As you can see, we're getting less and less shallow as we get closer to port. The ship's master clock, the Navtex receiver. Navtex is a medium frequency safety system set out by all the governments around the world with the exception of Australia, and that sends out a signal which can be up to 200 miles from land, and it just gives you weather updates, exercise manoeuvres for military vessels, areas to steer clear, dangers, so on and so forth. We have the planning ECDIS. The planning ECDIS is where all the passage planning is carried out. It shows the current route across the Irish Sea. So you can see up here is where is Ireland. We come up through here, in towards the River Mersey and down to Liverpool. Right up to the end of passage off the lock gate. We go through the locks and onto our berth. You can edit the route here, and all the waypoints are put in here, distances to go, what they're called, etc. So we know what we're doing. Moving further along, we get to the old-fashioned navigation style. We've got a sextant, which works out an angle between an object and its reflected bearing, or two objects if on the shore side. The angle of the object will give you an arc on the sextant. Obviously, again, as with everything at sea, you have to correct it for accuracy. When you've got the reflected angle, so you might have the sun reflected down to the horizon, which will allow you to work out a intercept using a lot of mathematical trickery from the Nautical Almanac. On your current day, for instance, here we can get the sun and the moon declaration, global Greenwich hour angle, twilight, moonrise, twilight in the evening and moon set, sunrise, sunset, so on and so forth. Using the Norris nautical tables, you can use your ABC tables, which will give you the true bearing of the sun at a specific point. That will then allow you to get an intercept towards or away, give you a position line. You can then run that up 4 hours ahead and put it in, and then when you take your next sight 3 hours, 4 hours later, however many it may be, you can then get your position fix. The old-fashioned way of going across the equator, going across the seas in deep sea. We have the flag locker, all the different flags, and those are interpreted using the International Code of Signals with the single letter meanings. So for instance, the Bravo flag we use every time we take bunkers because it would mean, let's see, focus that for you, I'm taking in or discharging or carrying dangerous goods. You've got other flags as well, Alpha for having a diver down, so on and so forth. Yankee, I'm dragging my anchor. All the flags and the number flags are there. You can also use multiple flag hoists, so you can use several flags together. Lima Whiskey, for instance, is I receive your transmission on bearing, etc, etc. That's all of that part. Now, if we go to the bridge wings for the final section, I can get you a better picture of the oil rig, or the rig that we're passing as well. So, there we go, another ship outbound, and the Douglas Field rig. Right, when we come in and out of port, I stand here, I can see through the deck here, and I control the ship using these bridge wing controls. They are an exact replica of the center. We have rudder controls here. I can use port stutter. Yes.
We're starting the engine.
Oh, okay, we're about to start the second engine. So let's go to the center here. So, because we're changing the engine controls on one side, the ship will take a shear. So we put helm on, as Simon is doing now, just to stop the ship shearing off. Because we've got this port engine ahead, we will take a shear to starboard. And you can see we did actually have a starboard rate of turn, but the use of the wheel is stopping that. That was the green bar at the top here. It's now coming back to port to bring us back on course. The engines have been started, so we've taken bridge control on the starboard engine and we're slowly increasing speed. When you've got two propellers both pushing along at the same speed, you don't get any of the transverse thrust error, so the ship will stay easier on course. And then once we're back up to speed, we'll go back into autopilot and we'll start our approach into port. Thank you very much, Simon.
Thank you.
Right, let's go back to the bridge wing. So, as you can see now, the starboard engine has been pushed up a bit. It will be pushed up again in a minute once we're back up to speed. We've got the two rudders, port and starboard rudder, the VHF radio, the bow thruster controls, analog gauges for the engines, bow thruster readouts, windscreen washers and heaters, and again you've got your ECDIS and you've got your radar. So everything is controlled again on the starboard side. You still have your indicators up top, but because we have to come alongside, we wouldn't be able to control it from the center and get an accurate position, so I control everything from the bridge wing. Good visibility all around in this ship. Nice enclosed bridge wings, you don't have to face the elements in winter, which is always very nice. So those are the bridge wing controls. That's pretty much everything that's up on the bridge. Let's go outside just because it's going to be a nice ending out there. I hope you found the video interesting. We've still got another couple to come, so I hope you find those interesting as well. Just for information, we have emergency man overboard buoys here with a smoke float, which you can see here. If someone does go overboard, you pull the pin out from inside, the life buoy falls over the side, takes the smoke float with it as well, so that it indicates with bright yellow smoke or orange smoke where the man overboard is. That's our MFHF aerial, and I think I'll just leave you with a nice scanner shot. Thank you very much everyone, and I hope you enjoy the videos.